And we're live. Woo, 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 woo.
Hello.
Who are you? Now it's stuck in my head. Alrighty. Welcome, everybody, to the Unknown Era podcast, the end of 2016 edition.
It's New Year's Eve. Woo!
Woo! It's exciting because that means that this year is finally done.
Yeah.
And that's something to celebrate. As always, I'm your host, Barton Bennett, and with me is Rick. Hello.
Hello.
What do you got there, Rick?
I have some Henkel.
Some Henkel.
Henkel Champagne.
Some Hagnana.
Champagne, which I shall uncork now. And the only question is, do I do it the fun way or the proper way?
Why is that playing? I'm scared.
The fun way will create a lot of hoopla.
Don't fuck up my room.
And perhaps a little bit of mess.
Don't mess up my room.
And the proper way is actually quite boring.
Let's do it the proper way.
The proper way, if you've grown up in a wine culture, you already know that you have to just squeeze the cork and twist very slowly, and the pressure of the bottle will force it out anyway, until you get a nice little
And
no spill.
Lovely. That scared me.
And in place of flutes, we have pint glasses.
Wait, yeah, I don't have any. I don't drink champagne all the time. So
we've been scratching our heads here.
Well, first I'm just gonna say a couple announcements, just because it's right at the very beginning of the podcast.
Sure.
So I don't say it at the end of the podcast when people have probably stopped listening. First things first, if you can't see behind us, there's a bunch of equipment right there. Why is that? Because next week we start shooting our short film.
On the 6th. Woo!
Woo! So we're getting pretty busy for that. That's why there won't be a podcast next week. But we are going to be updating tons on the Unknown Era Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but then also on the Facebook page for the film, which is The Death of Ian Hall. If you look that up, you should be able to find that.
Hashtag.
The hashtag is Ian Hall Movie. And so be sure to follow that. There will be links into the description on the YouTube channel. Hi, Reese. Happy New Year. Your New Year starts in like 4 hours. Ours starts in 9.
That many hours.
9. But actually, since Reese is here, I'm just gonna quickly do. I don't know if
a plug.
I don't know if you have to because this is the only thing is I don't know if people outside of Canada can donate to this.
Can use it?
Well, I don't know, but
Me.
I'm gonna put these links into. I'm gonna put these links into here.
Chat. Follow our film. It's a lot of fun.
So yeah, so we're going to.
It's not sad at all.
It's not sad at all. It's not about death. Oh wait, death's in the title.
Oops.
But yeah, so there's links. They'll be in the description of the audio version and the video version on YouTube. And yeah, follow it on the Facebook page. But then also we do have a crowdfunding campaign going on. So if you could check that out, donate if you like, and then if not, if you can't donate, then just share it and they'd be like, hey,
share the page.
Independent filmmaking. We should support it.
And we've got cool, thought-provoking articles for you to read that are posted on the page.
We got cool people in it. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun. We have some awesome prizes.
Awesome things.
We got some awesome prizes.
And some awesome photos to be taken.
Yeah, we got shared. We got cool stuff. So, thank you for doing that. Also, thank you to sponsor of the podcast, 90s Throwbox.
As
we're going to be talking more about that. I'm going to have cheers.
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 New Year's.
New Year's. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
We'll be talking more about our sponsor in a little bit. But first, it's the end of the year of our Lord and Savior 2016. I do have Peggle here because I wanted to play something happy and nice as we talk about the shit that was 2016. A lot of ups and downs, I would say. It's up to you. It's up to you to decide. Was it a good year for you? Or was it a bad year for you? For myself, it was interesting. It was an interesting combination of goods and bads. Not gonna lie, like beginning of the year was had its ups and downs, but I worked a lot. Started working more on. We started doing a lot more actual work in terms of shooting stuff and getting things ready and trying to actually make our careers beginning them, which was really exciting. And we have a lot of prospects on the horizon, and just trying to keep myself busy was my goal once the year started to get really busy, started to get like really serious. Just not let horrible things happening in the world or in my life and stuff, try to distract me from what I really want to do, what really made me happy, which was being able to start making stuff and continuing on our careers and hopefully get to do more and more. So that was my year. We're going to talk more about like the news and stuff about 2016, but what about you, Rick? What do you think?
It's interesting because I think when the year started, I was pretty optimistic about the whole idea of 2016. But yeah, the more it went on, more things kind of dragged, and yeah, it's been like a productive year in terms of doing a lot of work, some things that I wouldn't normally be doing, spending some more time on me and the things that I want to do as well. But yeah, overall, it's been quite a bummer. And a thing that I know about myself, a thing I knew about myself for a long time, is like that I tend to think in really sort of big terms. So this year, in terms of like a global political thing, has not been great for my morale and optimism for our species, essentially. as bleak as it is, because this sort of just leads into the political topics. But I was expecting a conservative backlash, but in the next generation of people, not this soon. So that's a bummer. And yes, it is sort of. It's not a global backlash. Hopefully not yet. Hopefully not ever. But that's to be seen. And this year has just made me very trepidatious about it.
Makes sense. Yes, this year was interesting to say the least. I think though it's what could be. I don't know. I guess I would consider it more of a. I think there's a lot of setup. There's like people are like, oh fuck 2016. Like there's a lot of shit that did happen, but there's also a lot of good happen. Yes, we spent like geez, like 15 minutes before the podcast started trying to look up like good things that happened in 2016, and it was honestly very tricky. It was actually super difficult to find a good list of things that happened in 2016, because a lot of what people were saying was things like like on there was a bunch of list of like, oh, like the Cubs won the World Series, like they had like a huge streak going and they finally won. It's like, I mean, that's cool, but what about good things for humankind?
Not for the Cubs.
It's great for the Cubs. But what about us as a species or people or whatever?
I mean, the old saying, "What's good for the Cubs is good for everybody."
But so yeah, no, I was trying to see like what other good things, and we did look up a list, and there were some things like there's a lot of records about what is it that a lot of things that are down, like endangered animals are down,
Homelessness is down.
homelessness is down, employment's on the rise, which is nice. It's good to see that, you know, these things that kind of never get really talked about are, when you really finally look at them, they're like, oh, hey, this is actually going well.
We're feeding more people.
Yep. You know, there's a lot of economic changes in this year, which were interesting, and a lot of like, what was the one post? I'm trying to remember. It was about, what was that plane?
Oh, yeah. And that was a really common one, which I was not actually excited about. I heard it and I was like, cool. But there was a solar-powered plane circumnavigated the globe. And at the time I thought, cool, and looked into it. I mean, it is cool. I don't want to shirk on anybody's, I don't want to rain on any parade. But I like to see big steps.
Oh,
It's a really cool first step that I hope that a passenger could go on it at some point.
yeah. Well, even like the progress that SpaceX has made,
Oh yeah, that stuff's really cool.
and like, you know, everything, like how successful. What was it? Oh shit.
Another company?
No, it's still Elon Musk. What's the car?
Tesla?
Teslas. How popular Teslas are now,
Yeah,
even though
that's
they're
pretty sweet.
hella expensive. It's still like, you know, electric cars.
Yo, that guy's
That's-
got great ideas.
That's because that's awesome that that's becoming a thing. And hopefully in the next year it will, you know, hit a even bigger high, and maybe other companies will see the competition that Tesla is bringing on and try to, because that's the thing, is the best thing for business is competition.
Mhm.
And so maybe, you know, seeing how popular they're able to do it for, instead of going, oh, hey, why don't we just make gas cars and trucks cheaper,
Yeah.
so that we can still sell, and people will be like, oh, well, electric cars are too expensive, blah, blah. Maybe instead they'll be like, let's try to make a cheaper electric car so we can, you know, try to beat the crazy price that Tesla has right now.
Mm-hmm. And they're gonna release a cheaper model, anyways.
Yeah.
At something like $30,000, I
Hmm.
think, 35 or something. Which is still pretty damn expensive, but getting there.
Yeah.
But I think they're always going to be sort of the Lincoln of cars
yeah.
to some extent of electric cars.
Well, their quality is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. Self-driving, that's a thing this year.
Yeah.
How do you feel about self-driving cars?
I'm interested in it. I'm hoping that the problem that I see with things like that is it's really hard to, like, do you remember the video of solar panel roads?
Oh yeah,
That whole thing?
I was so convinced. Still am, actually.
Well,
Still convinced.
the problem with that is introducing it into
Oh, yeah.
an ecosystem
It's a crazy cost.
that is not supported. Like, imagine trying to do that here in Toronto. It's like, nowhere would do it, because you have to bring it into what's already been set, and
Mhm.
trying to then install that would be insane. It would cost so much money.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember reading an article about, I forget where it is. I think it's a place in the Netherlands where this one town doesn't have cars.
Okay.
They just use bikes.
Sweet.
And like, they've taken away all of the roads, and just developed the town even more to be walking lanes and bike lanes. And like, there are a few roads, but it's like very, very minimal in terms of, you know, what they need to sustain a lot of things inside their own town.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was pretty cool, that like we're getting closer to that kind of thing. And like, but if we were to try to introduce that, it would cause a huge economic. It would be just way too difficult for a lot of places.
Yeah.
To like introduce that and try to make it the main thing. It'd take years, if anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. And well, even in the even in the video itself, it's like use it for driveways, and I was really hoping that people would, because that's a if you're gonna like pave your driveway, say it's not paved, and you have some money, and you're looking to save some money in the long run, you do that, and the more popular it becomes on those driveways, then the more popular it's gonna become. But that's sort of fallen away. Not many people have been doing it.
No.
But that'd be pretty sweet.
What were some other things on that list? One big thing was Harry Tubman replacing Andrew Jackson on the U.S. $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
It's pretty sweet.
It's cool. It's nice. It's just good for, being like, hey, this is our... I like that. I'm happy that more and more of, hey, this is our, we're talking about U.S. history. This is technically our history.
Yeah.
Like for the States, it's like, yes, good. You're finally realizing that, that, the freedom, the rights movements and all that is a huge part of your country's history now. Like, you should realize that. And that you're going to include it and be like, this is an astounding moment in our history. It's like, good.
Mm-hmm.
What else was on there? Oh, that I actually found, I think that's the very first time I ever heard of it, and I was actually very happy to finally hear about it, was the fact that the Ice Bucket Challenge actually did something good.
Oh yeah, I know.
And that they
just fun.
That they actually found the gene that makes that is involved in ALS.
Which is great. And then also gene editing is a thing.
Yes. So what exactly does that do again?
Oh, gene editing is pretty cool. So you can basically... It's Gattaca, man. We're there-ish. We're getting there. You can
So just choosing things for birth?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not quite there.
Right.
But we've got some pretty cool things to do. And I think, obviously, well, I haven't actually looked too much into it, but I'm assuming that gene editing is not in a human. I'm pretty sure it was not done on a human.
Right.
Because that would have been pretty huge news.
Yes.
But another thing is actually gene sequencing has actually become a really big thing this year. And the cost of it is somewhat expensive.
Right.
It's about $1,000 to get yourself sequenced. But that's one of those things that's it's a step towards that Gattaca world where it's if you're going to have a child and you and your partner get sequenced, you can have a very, very... Well, you basically have a probability done of the chances of your child having such and such or such and such. And then being able to monitor the child as it's developing. So then in the not too distant future, you'd be able to edit some genes and say it's cystic fibrosis or something, and you just change it. So genetic diseases could be eradicated within our lifetimes. Wouldn't that be interesting?
That would be very interesting.
That would be very interesting. We'd all be superhumans, except for us. We'd be working at, we'd be janitors, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
We'd just be janitors.
Oh, well. Small price to pay.
But, what else is, so hard to think about, try to find the good in what has been so dark.
Oh, infant mortality is down, too.
What was that?
Infant mortality is down.
Oh, yes.
Globally. So that's good. Babies are living.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a population crisis. But babies are living.
That's good. It's good to have those babies.
It's good to have those babies.
Because they're the future.
They bring us joy.
They're
pretty funny in the short term. And yeah, they can make some good changes in the long term.
Yeah.
Because someday they'll be real people.
Someday they could be the president. They could be the world leaders of tomorrow.
They could be.
You never know.
I mean, somebody. They all were babies, I hope.
In the light of the U.S. election, a lot more, not necessarily people probably say not in Trump's cabinet or whatever, Trump's Congress or whatever, but in terms of governors, a lot of firsts were this year.
That's true.
Which was very cool. Firsts of different, including women and people of color. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I'm happy about hearing that. That was some good that came out of all that.
It's...
What else was this year?
Well, I mean, the Brexit was this year.
Brexit was this year. That's not necessarily good, but
We also saw the thing where it was like,
but it's a big world. Like there was a lot of world changing things that happened this year.
and I really hope it's just limited to there. And I'm happy that we had our election when we did, because boy, could it have been different, I suppose.
Yeah.
Ugh.
When was our election again?
It was last something. November? No.
Maybe.
It hasn't been a year yet.
No.
It?
No.
No, it wasn't.
Definitely has not.
No, it doesn't. No. Yeah, when was it?
I'm not too sure.
Was it winter?
It was winter, yes.
Yeah. So it must be coming up on a year.
Close to that, at least.
And, things are going fine right now. But now we have the, on Canadian politics, we've got the Conservative Convention, basically.
Oh, Lord.
And who's going to be the next leader of the Conservative Party?
The person that they have been, not to get too heavy into politics, but the person that literally every single Canadian outlet has been labeling as Canada's Trump. So, there you go. But I guess
I don't think we're going to fall into that trap, though.
I don't think so. I really hope not. Unless it's the same turn that the U.S. decided to have, and all the people that were like
moderate,
that were like, yay, oh my god, that were like, yay Harper, yay Stephen Harper, are gonna suddenly turn and be like, yes, this woman,
this crazy person,
she'll change everything, and everybody that voted, Liberal or even NDP were like, no, don't do that thing, please.
Yeah. I don't think we'll do it. I was actually watching something on the CBC about it, and they had some pretty good insights. They'd be like, I don't think it's going to happen because Canada hasn't fallen into a lot of the same economic traps that America has. Like we didn't suffer as much in the recession, essentially.
Our dollar still sucks, though.
Oh yeah, it still sucks, but we didn't suffer as much because actually it was that whole time during the recession, our dollar was up.
Yes.
So we just sort of stayed the same, and I think they're in the process of bouncing back still. And then, of course, they blame their progress on the Liberals who helped them get there, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's weird.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I guess some bad...
The obvious bad things.
There's like weird, good, and bad things. It's like I think it's progress, and it's hard to talk about. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say about world stuff if you're not super educated. Like, I'm not too educated on world politics in a lot of ways, but I think there was, like, in some of the articles we were reading, there was a lot of like countries coming together in various ways and making treaties, or at least talking.
Peace in Colombia.
Yeah, that was one of them.
The AU, the African Union, has a passport for everybody. It's pretty great, but it's not going to help the whole... I mean, it's a minor thing, but it's not going to help the whole situation where people are like, I went to Africa as a country. People are like, but that's not a country.
Yeah.
But it's great, so you can, travel between the borders, and I hope, I hope that all goes well. That's actually a pretty big step to have all the countries working together for something.
Yeah. It's interesting. I always thought it was interesting where, like, even looking at all that news, I'm like, yeah, but I want to know more world stuff. Like, people, like, what was the one thing that was said? It was the, in Malaysia, they're hoping to eradicate, what was that?
Oh, that was Sri Lanka and Malaysia? Or, sorry, Sri Lanka was hoping to
eradicate
malaria.
Yes. It's like...
In 5 years.
Yes.
Ambitious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then that...
Measles?
Measles.
Measles is not a thing in North America anymore?
That's good.
Good?
That's really good.
That's pretty big news, actually, because that's great. Great that we don't have a thing.
Yeah.
It's something as terrible as that. It's like we don't have it. It's wonderful.
It's hopefully going to happen more and more.
Yeah, let's make that happen globally.
Was what the hell was it? I'm trying to think of the name now.
Ebola?
Was that this year, or was that
the Ebola virus? That was totally last year.
Yeah, but then like we saw an article that said like that it was eradicated in Africa. It's like,
That's huge.
yeah, if it's, I don't know if that's entirely true, but like that'd be sick. Also because it was crazy how Ebola specifically, like came and went in a sense. Like I don't know if you remember seeing like how crazy it was, where it's like, no, we have to contain it, we have to contain it, and it's like, sure, a lot of people in Africa had suffered from it, but then in North America there was like, I think in Canada there was one case.
Yeah, it didn't spread as much as people had feared.
No,
But that's all thanks to the medical professionals
Yes.
who are working on the ground.
yeah, I think
Surely.
I think it definitely was like, instead of certain things that have happened in the past, like I remember when we were younger, West Nile and SARS, and like how it kind of just happened and no one was prepared. This was definitely a more, oh, this is happening, we need to prepare for this.
I think we might be getting better at it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because a lot of health organizations are probably terrified of the idea of a super virus
Mm-hmm.
that we've created, sort of, that we've allowed to create itself.
But yeah, what else was like? Obviously, there's things like, there's a lot of shit that happened in the U.S. this year. A lot of shit that's happening in, like not where would you call like where Aleppo is and all that stuff?
Oh, Syria's in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And in Turkey, which is somewhere between. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on still. We still have all these wars.
Wars.
I'm not down for all these wars.
Like like that's the funny, like that's the thing I was trying to think of earlier today. I was like, did anything happen in Canada?
Well, yeah.
A lot of shit in the U.S. and a lot of shit in the Middle East.
We had
Right. Oh wait, wasn't
there's a couple things.
Wasn't wait, was that this year? Was the big Russia? Was it Russia or was it oh my god, terrible with names of places.
Treaty?
No, it was name of place.
Did it have to do with our kick-ass Northern Passage?
No, it didn't have to do with us.
Oh. That Russia did something good?
No.
That Russia attacked civilians in Syria?
It wasn't Siberia. It was the Ukraine. What was it in the Ukraine?
Oh, Ukraine. No, that was last year.
That was last year? Okay.
Or no, 2014 to present. I guess it's still going on. Yeah, the annexation
Mm-hmm.
of oh god, yeah, now I'm forgetting the name because it's not just all of the Ukraine. It's
Yeah, that was in November of last year. November escalation. Yeah. And then 2015, all this stuff happened. Nothing's really happened in 2016.
the Crimea.
Mm-hmm.
The Crimea. Yeah. Not cool.
We can't remember the names. Not cool though.
Calling it out, not really cool.
To
impose on people's independence. And then other world leaders, also not cool.
And then
like, we went to war with Germany for a similar thing, remember?
Guys, just remember
that.
we all didn't like Germany.
Well, because of one specific incident.
It's like, hey Russia,
And then others.
remember when you teamed with North America because we didn't like what happened in Germany? Remember?
Remember how everybody got pretty pissed off with the invasion of Poland?
Remember? But then U.S. election. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's yet to be seen, and that's the scary thing about 2016, if anything.
A lot of things happen that are going to determine the future, and we're going to have to see what's going to end up happening.
Some of these things will at least determine the next 4 years in the States, these ideas that are popping up and could resonate for decades. So we don't know what the implications are, because as if it's going to sort of mirror sort of a liberal expansion, right? Then this is going to rain on for a while, and it's really scary. Some of the things in the States with the KKK, and even some of it's been spreading up here to some extent. It's kind of weird. People are emboldened by these events, and that's the scary thing, because there's still a minority of people. It's just extremism. It's just extremism.
I would definitely say that Canada is not as divided as the States, obviously.
No. Depending on where you are, people are...
Depending on where you are.
It's not like it's a more...
It's a very hard thing, like...
I hate to say it's a more diverse country, because we're not. But...
It was one of the things that I remember when the election was going on, and I remember listening to big speech by Michael Moore. And sometimes I agree with Michael Moore, sometimes I hate the way that he looks at topics and is very extremist about a lot of things.
Yeah, he's a liberal extremist.
But his whole speech about why his whole thing about Trump was a giant Molotov cocktail that the people of this country needed or wanted to throw at the establishment to get their voices heard. I think that is something that, I remember listening to that and thinking, I think I know a lot of people that would listen to that and go, "Oh, this is bullshit." And I'm like, I grew up in a small town. This makes sense. I think small town Canada is definitely a bit different in some ways than small town USA. But there's still a lot of things like, unrecognized racism, and certain and a lot of other things. That living in Toronto for years now, I can definitely see how a lot of people here are so much more aware of things such as, like the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, and just things in that nature where it's social and social justice, I guess.
Yeah, well, Toronto in particular, it's a very diverse city. So when you're living amongst people, it's a lot easier to relate to them directly.
Yeah,
and that's the thing about small. I grew up in a very racist place, but it's ignorance, is what I would say.
I would never say that. I think it's definitely ignorance, where it's there's not too many situations for people that I know to then come up on where someone says, "Hey, you shouldn't say that," or "Hey, that's not right," or there's not too much of that. There are people that will say will speak up and be like, "Hey, you really shouldn't be doing that," or saying stuff like that. But it is definitely an ignorance thing, where it's just there's some places where people are like that, but they don't ever have the interaction to realize that they really shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah, if you don't interact with people outside of your own culture, then you're gonna not understand where they're coming from.
So so I can definitely see why there was a huge thing for a lot of places in the U.S. to be they're more concerned about their jobs than the people. If you look at the places that were very blue, like LA and New York. It's well, of course, those are the cities that are, one, the most populated, and two, it's people whose lives are a ton different than the people that work on farms every single day. They work in an office, and they have these more social kind of lives, where they see these injustices in the world and discrimination and of varying degrees amongst different ethnic groups and women and all that kind of stuff. While the people that live in Midwest or places like that, their concerns are more economic. Their jobs, the fact that their lives have been spent in factories or on farms, trying to make a living. And I'm not standing up for shit. I think I definitely have no support for.
Yeah, honestly, Trump. I mean, in this age, ignorance is not really a good excuse anymore.
But I can entirely see what happened and why it happened.
Yeah.
And I think,
and I would love to really blame like a very specific American attitude. It's just like looking inwards and me kind of thing.
yeah,
But to some extent, that's just gonna happen all over the world.
yeah. I think there's going to be, like, if anything, this will be, hey, look at what's happening, and then changes will come from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what happens, it's like, it's 4 years. We'll see what bad comes of it.
Yeah.
Like,
I really respect the people, like liberal people, who immediately right after the like results came in, they were like, okay, instead of just wallowing, they were like, you know what this is? This is a real cry for help, and it means that it gives them the sort of the push to have a real discussion as a country,
mm-hmm.
and that's their thing. But of course, you know, the conservative media is just like, no, we don't want to discuss anything. We just want to do our thing. You guys leave us alone. But that'd be nice because it's, you know, scary, and that's all 2016 is. It's fucking scariness.
There's definitely also a lot of things in terms of media that happened this year. Probably one of the biggest stories.
News.
The biggest story is fake news, and so it'll be interesting how organizations try to go forward from that.
I mean, get out of your Facebook bubble. I think we talked about it here before. It's like you live in a bubble where you.
That's very true. A big discussion this year. A big discussion this year, and I think it's going to be interesting. I hope things like progress further from it. Is the idea, and I know a lot of people don't like talking about it and are very angry about hearing this word, but your safe space,
right?
Like and that's like everybody has to have a safe space, and it's like, but that's not what the world is like. Like, sure, I can go on my Facebook and I have friends, and all my friends are basically pretty, you know, liberal,
mm-hmm.
And you know, I don't like, you know, I'll be honest, I don't like seeing, I wouldn't like seeing a very democratic sort of, or not Democrat, I mean, Republican or conservative kind of like extremist kind of viewpoint, in my own personal, you know, view.
Yeah, but at the same, unfriended a guy who was like very right wing, and I was like, this is terrible.
But at the same time, I won't say who, but I know someone that I have on there who I'm related to, who posts very extremist liberal things,
mm-hmm.
and it's very annoying because it's just like trying to be in your face, like fuck Trump, blah, 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 blah. This is what's wrong with the world. And it's like you're still very annoying about all this stuff. Like, sure, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't want it to be up in my face the whole time. Like it's still this like, yeah, and like everybody likes to have their like, you know, I don't want to see things I don't like in my own thing, but it needs to be talked about. And that's the other thing with in terms of news and stuff is that one of the most respected things that I think I watched this year was the thing from the Daily Show where it was what's his name?
Oh, Trevor Noah?
Trevor Noah and the woman from, is she from CNN or?
Oh yeah, that hilarious, that was really funny to see in a way.
But at the same time, they weren't yelling at each other. They weren't like, you know, they weren't pointing fingers and telling each other they were wrong. They were actually having a full-on discussion. Yes, there were funny moments in it.
The thing that got me was that, so you know, you see it on Facebook because like I'm not the one to go out and find things directly immediately. Yeah. So you see it on the news or you see it on Facebook and you see these varying things about it. You're like, you know, Noah Trevor's like destroys what's her face, or you see the exact opposite,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, what is this? I just want to find the link so I can watch it and decide for myself. And it actually took me a little while to find the link because every time I tried to click on something, it was somebody being like, somebody's YouTube channel or somebody's something being like, oh, Trevor Noah, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
blah.
Someone's like, opinion on.
Just give me the goddamn piece so I can make a goddamn decision.
Someone's opinion on the matter rather than them like saying like, here, watch it.
Yeah, and I watched it and I was like, this is all. I mean, everyone's just really hyping this up. I'm very perplexed by that type of person
But the thing is,
their points are valid.
The thing that's
very concerned about it, though.
That's the thing is like that is a person though.
It is, and
those people exist out in the world, and they have their
own rationale.
And the thing is, those people are in charge of
the country now. Yeah,
their country now. So,
their country, please God.
So that's the thing is like that's how it is. And so instead of just being there and being a pissed off little kid about you're not listening to me, blah blah blah, it's like, why don't we all just sit around, listen to each other, and then be able to give each other points about well, like that's the thing is like you could ask like someone's rationale about something. Someone's gonna say, I know I believe this, instead of going, oh, your opinion is bullshit, it doesn't matter, why don't you say, well, why? And then they bring up another point and they say, well, okay, but what about this? And you give them an idea or a set of eyes that say, why not look at it this way?
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, what I got out of that conversation was actually really interesting is that, like, I've, like in my just post-university days, I lived right next door to these guys from Riyadh. And they grew up in a very conservative atmosphere. And I remember talking to them about a bunch of things. We talked to them about a lot of things, about gay marriage, etc. And they were just like, no. For the most part, they were like, no. And we're like, but why? Have you thought about why?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be happy. You want people to be able to marry each other. They're like, yes. And you're like, but why? Is that a bad thing? And then they're like, well, I'm kind of stumped because I got nothing else to say, just because this is just the way I've lived. But that is different from somebody who's thought about these things before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got out of that conversation on the Daily Show was like, she knows.
Mm-hmm.
She knows the argument, but she just has a totally different conclusion. And that is just something I cannot wrap my mind around. Like, that conclusion is something that's just so different. It makes me really think that there's some sort of, I don't know, a different wiring in people, that if you are really a liberal or you are really a conservative, it's just totally a way that you think and you rationalize things. That's just so perplexing to me. It's confusing, and it must be just as confusing from the other side. You're like, how can they get to that conclusion from that?
Mm-hmm.
How do they get to that conclusion from this evidence?
Like, can't they see that this is
bad for the country? But it's like, I guess.
But that's literally what.
I don't think about the country.
But that's the thing. That's the thing is like,
I don't think country first.
I don't know if you saw the. I have it here somewhere. I saw some people sharing it, but it was a recent interview / I think she just came out and finally was able to talk about stuff. But it was a woman who was an FBI undercover agent, and her biggest thing was saying, the thing I've learned about being undercover and working with all these different types of people is that everybody believes they're the good guy.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that even if, like, you're a liberal and you're saying, can't they see that having a racist, misogynistic leader is a bad thing? People then look and say, on the other side, they say, don't you see that having a liberal, leader that isn't trying to fix our economic, severity a bad thing? And so everybody is thinking like they're looking at their own problem and saying like they're the good guy.
Well, that's the funny thing about actually reading these things on the thing, but it's like, it's not, I feel like they're not, I guess I feel like the rationale for them often is not current. It's not like a current thing. Like, their reaction, like, if you're going to argue economics,
mm-hmm.
but like, as we saw on like the big list of things that were good about 2016, it's like, the situation is actually getting better right now,
mm-hmm.
but they're just reacting to something that happened a couple years ago. And it's just, they just believed it since then, and they're still believing it now without taking in any new information. But I mean, again, that's sort of the same thing all around, but it's just so scary. It sort of reminded me of the first time I listened to Ricky Gervais's podcast. The first time I came across Carl Pilkington.
Oh yeah. Well,
I love Carl Pilkington.
You know that, like, in certain things he's playing a character.
Well, this is the thing about it.
Like
It makes you really unsure, but the funny thing about Carl Pilkington, whether he's a character or not, is that the things that he says,
are very
they have a very distinct rationale.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just a really weird way to rationalize things.
Yeah.
But it is rational. It just doesn't make sense to most people.
Well, it's definitely. I think that also just relates to the ignorance that people say that you talk about. Is like, you know how like I remember seeing a video where it was like a bunch of Trump supporters, and it's these types of people that the media likes to put in front of the camera because it's like, hey, look at how if they
are.
if they want to give their own like opinion of whatever, and it was it was like, oh, it was like, yeah, he won. But we believe that the votes were rigged, and that there's easily about 1 million votes out there that are fake. And then the correspondent woman for CNN was just like, but you believe, so you're saying that it was rigged,
and you won,
but you realize that if you really do believe that people like voted twice, or that there's some sort of fakeness of this election, like, yes, and it's like, but you won. Like, that's the thing. It's like
you realize if it was rigged, then it could be rigged either way.
And it's that kind of weird ignorance that people are like, they just want to blame the people, but then when you're trying to say, well, why? Why? Like, that's the question that no one likes answering is, yeah, but why? We should get rid of this. Yeah, but why? Well, 'cause. And I really hope that sort of mentality will eventually change, because it's it sucks. It sucks so much. It leaves, it's the kind of extremist kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, there's not really an answer to any of our questions. So can you please, like, try to, it's really tricky. It's like, if you just have beliefs and no reason for them, like, it's tricky to then have a discussion or try to figure out, if this is a real matter or not.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's the kind of thing.
Should we talk about all the celebrities we lost?
I guess so.
Or should we do our news segment?
That
might be interesting today.
Well, that's probably one of the bigger points of discussion is, I'm going to pause this for a second. There's a lot of people that died this year.
And that's the thing. It's public figures.
And it's
public figures.
And it's people that, but that's the thing is, this is going to happen again next year.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way, it's the way of life. But of course, I think the shocking thing is how many of these people are younger than expected.
Yeah, that's the thing. I had a really sort of scary thought when I was about 15, I think. Because I remember I was watching a bunch of movies and stuff and talked to my parents about them, and they're like, who's that? Who's that? I'm like, are you kidding me? What do you mean, who's that? And then they'll talk about people, and I'll be like, well, who's that? Some dead guy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm like, well, one day, all these movies that I love, who star actors that are like 20 or 30 years older than me,
mm-hmm.
they'll all be dead. And at one point, I'll be like, well, don't I feel sort of alienated in the pop culture universe right now?
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to happen, but this is just weird. Yeah, because everyone's a lot younger than I thought.
Yeah.
Like, I was expecting, like, Judi Dench, like, James Earl Jones,
Betty White.
Christopher Plummer, knock on wood. He's getting old. Yeah, Betty White. She's still on television.
Keith Richards.
Yeah, people who you just think of, but none of these people I would think of.
Mm-hmm. So I tried to look for a good list. It's very hard to find a good list because there's a lot of people that get left off the list.
Yeah, depending on if it's like U.S. or not.
Or also
is George Michael on this list?
Yeah. Or there's also like people that are, there's a lot of lists that are just like music and TV and stuff. But this list also has, has celebrities, musicians, actors, but then it also has leaders, politicians, military figures, journalists and stuff.
King of Thailand.
So
that's a killer.
So there's, of course, celebrities are actors and directors. Recently Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher. That Carrie Fisher was a big one for me. growing up and being a huge Star Wars fan.
Total shock, dude.
Yeah.
I heard she had a heart attack, and I just thought she was gonna pull through for some reason. Because that's the sort of norm these days, you know.
She was looking good, and then
that's the
something
thing.
happened. No, it's a heart attack for her, and then a stroke for her mother the day after.
I'm sorry to that family.
Yeah, well, especially her daughter.
Yeah, that super sucks
for Billy Lord because lost her mom and her grandmother in 2 days, which is crazy. Actor comedian Ricky Harris, Zaza Gabor, Alan Thicke, who he wasn't that old either.
No.
Let's see who else. Oh, Florence Henderson, Carol Brady.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, she was getting up there, but wasn't as old as like Betty White. Robert Vaughn, he's been in tons of things.
Yeah,
and that was he was definitely kind of not heard about. Chris Hansen was the director of 8 Mile and LA Confidential. Sharmin Shah, who is the one of the children in Sound of Music.
Oh, it's a killer.
Alexis Arquette, actress and transgender activist.
Oh God, Kenny Baker, Gene Wilder.
Yeah, Kenny Baker and Muchi.
Oh.
He was the guy who's in the elf suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like people are like, oh, Carrie Fisher. It's like I saw a very good picture. I saw a very good picture of like it was an artist and they drew Princess Leia and R2D2 and I was like, that's very fitting because they both went this year. But yeah, Gene Wilder. Who else was a big person? Anton Yelchin.
Sorry,
I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah, that was sudden car accident and everything. Gary Marshall. Who else is on here? That's known at least. No. There's a lot of just like small actors this year. China.
Madeline LeBeau. Madeline LeBeau
from Casablanca. I forget what else she did back in the day. China, wrestler and entertainer. Big movement for women in wrestling in the early 90s. Doris Roberts, the mom from Everybody Loves Raymond, but she was also in she's in Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
She's also in Grandma's Boy.
Oh boy.
The guy who did the voice of Admiral Akbar.
Sure.
Sure.
I don't know who that was, but yeah.
It's the thing. I'm sure you could probably find him. He's probably more of a European actor, but still. Who else is on here? There's a lot of like smaller named people. That's like you can name them and people are gonna be like, who?
Yeah.
Joe Aselke voices Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. Oh, not one of the originals, but he did them for I think from the 80s to like the early 2000s. Remember that guy?
Yep.
Yeah, Abe Vigoda. He was one of the. Who was he in The Godfather? He was one of like.
He was one of the other guys, one of the other leaders, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Alan
Rickman, big one. Yeah. And then musicians, George Michael recently passed. To do Sharon Jones, Leonard Cohen. Who else is here? To do Guy Clark for Blues and Grass. He was a big blues and it's like a mix of country and blues. Guitar player.
Frank Sinatra Jr.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra Jr.
It
was like a month ago.
What a world.
Merle Haggard. If you're a sort of country fan, you should know Merle Haggard. Prince, Keith Emerson, and Greg Lake from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who were a very influential band back in the 70s and 80s in terms of more experimental music. David Bowie, obviously. Maurice White, the leader and founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Glenn Frey, who is lead guitarist and singer of the Eagles. Who else was on here? I think they're missing on this list. I believe they're missing what's his name from Motorhead, Lenny, the lead singer and bass player from Motorhead. He died this year. George Martin, known as the Fifth Beatle, he was their producer for almost every single one of their albums. Yeah.
And of course, did we say David Bowie?
Yeah, David Bowie. But then leaders and politicians and military figures. This is very, very interesting. John Glenn, former senator and astronaut. The Thai King.
The Thai King. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, but
no,
that's devastating. I was really bummed out.
There's a lot of
Castro's not on that list.
Former secretary. Well, this is no, I guess not.
Castro's not on the CNN list. Way to go.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, but Fidel Castro also this year. What else was on here? Maybe people know. Former Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird. I'm wondering what year he was. Israeli leader and Nobel laureate Simon Perez. What else is former First Lady Nancy Reagan. Former Toronto Mayor Rob Ford.
Oh, that's right.
That was earlier this year.
And we shall hold our tongue.
Edgar Mitchell, astronaut who walked on the moon.
God, how many guys are there left? Like just Buzz? How many guys have walked on the moon? Now, alive.
I'm not too sure. Mother Mary Angelica, nun who built Catholic Media Network. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Suzanne Wright, autism advocate. Journalists, authors, innovators, media, and academic figures. Robert Leo Glusman, inventor of the Solo Cup.
Nice, good job, guy.
Walt Disney artist Terrence Wong. He drew most of the Bambi cells, I guess. Watership Down author Richard Adams recently.
Tuck Everlasting, what Natalie Babbitt? Tuck Everlasting author? Have you read Tuck Everlasting?
I don't know who I'm looking at right now.
It's the weird one with a lot of pictures, a lot of people in pictures.
Oh, Tuck Everlasting
author.
Have you
read Tuck Everlasting?
No.
It's about immortality and terribleness that comes with it. It's a children's book.
Then people from many different networks and such as ESPN's John Sanders, PBS's John McLaughlin, CNN's Will King, Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, died earlier this year.
Bad year for literature as well.
And then chefs, sport, design, art, and business figures.
Such an interesting category of people.
Craig Sager, colorful Time Warner Cable
Company.
No, it's used colorful Turner Sports reported, but I'm wondering what network that was on. Heisman Trophy winner Rashawn Salam. Dylan Ryder, pro skateboarder and model.
What, Kimbo Slice?
Kimbo Slice,
that was earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah. MMA fighter. MMA fighter.
Kimbo Slice will always have a little piece of me. Because of the videos he used to make before the MMA happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Street fighting.
Yeah.
Let's see who else is on here. Oh, Muhammad Ali is a very famous one. BMX legend Dave Mira. Bill Johnson, former Olympic gold medal skier. Andrew Smith, former Butler basketball player. Monte Irving, a baseball Hall of Fame outfielder. The Hawk from American Gladiator, Lee Ryerman. Comic book artist Darren Cook. Gordie Howe died this year, legendary hockey player. Pat Summitt, legendary women's basketball coach. Fashion photographer Bill Cunningham. Tons and tons and tons of people.
A lot of people.
It's pretty sad, but that's life. Crazy enough.
Mm-hmm.
We are but immortals. We are but mortals. Jesus.
We are but mere immortals.
We are some of these people.
Said the 17-year-old that I used to be.
What's funny though is that some of these people, like that's the thing. It's like it's sad to see people come and go, but some of these people and what they've done in their careers will forever be immortal in the way that they've touched the world or the people that they have inspired.
Yeah.
You know, just people like, Carrie Fisher or Gene Wilder or David Bowie or Alan Rickman. And
this is why we think it's such a bad year, because these people have... Actually, I was talking to Nisa actually last night about this, because we were lamenting the death of authors, and thinking about because a lot of the news is on celebrity, but I think that you process, although books are super important, Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, that you see that person. You see that person playing the thing.
And they come alive.
That person is alive to you in a different way than they are as a person, but that still means a lot to you personally, having their face and recognizing their face, and it draws up a lot of information just as itself.
What's like last year?
Similar to like a book title, drawing up a lot of things, but you don't... I would say, my argument was, I don't really equate a book title necessarily to an author in the same way that I do an actor to their performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like even last year with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Like, it's because of the performances that someone like that gives that touch you and make you laugh or make you cry or
those
make
really
you think.
Formative years, Robin Williams and Gene Wilder and stuff.
And that's the thing, is they draw on you like these different feelings or thoughts or emotions, and the memories that you have of that stick with you. And I'm sure it's depending on different people, and that, maybe you were a huge Harper Lee fan, or maybe, it's something that maybe, it's obviously just the different ways that you take stuff. So maybe someone, their favorite book was To Kill a Mockingbird, and it touched them in a very different way, and maybe it changed their outlook on life or something like that, and then that would become devastating. It's like the same way that like certain actors or actresses or public figures, they go, it makes you think about what they contributed to the world and what they what kind of mark they left on you. And that's what is the saddest part of seeing them go. And no matter what, it'd still be that way. But for a lot of these people, it was definitely a moment of, some of these people, like
some of them are divisive.
Well, some of them are also like, they were old and it was coming on to that point. But some of them, it's hard to say because they were, it's hard to say because they were getting old. But then some of them are, were like in their 60s, and it's like they could have lived easily 20 more years,
or 30.
Or 30.
We're getting to that point now where people are easily living in their 90s. Even men.
So, just sad to see them go, but they lived a fruitful life, and they were in the eye of the public, and and depending on what they did, I've seen a lot of people talk about Carrie Fisher and what she was able to do with being vocal about mental health and also about being a very big inspiration for women to get into acting. It's the kind of mark that you leave on the world and inspiration that you give to people, I think. And I can't be thankful enough for some of these people and what they did, and that they followed their dreams. And it's inspired millions to follow theirs.
Well, it certainly inspired us.
Mm-hmm. So all those people, I hope they're resting in peace.
Wherever that may be.
Wherever that may be. But thank you. And thank to all of you.
Should we leave on this
Somber
note?
Yeah. And thank you to all of you for listening to the podcast for its resurgence in the past year. We'll hopefully get to do more, but we will be off next weekend with the podcast, returning on the 14th. But hopefully this next year we have some ideas and we're gonna try to bring more content.
Mm-hmm. Trying to make some more content
that we can post here, but we are, very hopeful and have a lot of ideas about stuff that we want to do. And we hope that you stay with us and follow us through this next year, and it should be interesting.
Through the weird ass journey that will be the next year.
Yes.
2017. Woo!
Very much so. Thank you again to 90s Throwbox for sponsoring the podcast. That was a great thing that's happened recently. And if you want to check them out, you can go to 90sthrowbox.com. It's actually going to be starting next year. In this next month coming. So you can go ahead and sign up for your subscription and get a 90s Throwbox nostalgia-filled box of goodies. And if you do their pre-order right now, then you get to become a super subscriber or whatever they end up calling it. And you get a chance to actually get some premium items. And you can get 5% off of that by using the promo code UnknownError, all one word.
Nice. It's going to be good.
And it helps us out.
It does.
So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Of course, we try to be live every Saturday on our twitch.tv/UnknownErrorFilms. But if you don't get to check that out, then hopefully you check it out on YouTube, on our YouTube page, or listen to the audio on our SoundCloud, iTunes, or Google Play. So thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Unknown Era podcast. I'm trying to hold in my excitement as much as possible because we just fucking saw Rogue One. Holy shit! Anyway, but anyway, this is what we're going to talk about today. Is Rogue One.